if we're being honest with each other, I think one of the most difficult things that another person can do is marry somebody else. And don't get me wrong, like I love my wife. I think marriage is a wonderful, great thing. But things like divorce and separation and arguments, like these things still exist. So we kind of have to deal with the fact that there are things in marriage that aren't going to be perfect. And if you go into a marriage thinking everything is just going to be great once you're married, at the end of the day, it's still two sinners married to one another. And that's one of the things that I kind of laugh about when it comes to marriage counseling, because you want to do the marriage counseling before the wedding. And I mean, that's fine. There's a lot of things that people should be doing in marriage counseling before they get married. But I mean, the stars are still in their eyes. Their fiance can do no wrong. Like it's going to be the perfect thing, and they kind of get deaf to all the difficulties that marriage can bring. And so I think, I mean, let's just think about some of the things that might happen inside of a marriage that makes it more difficult than what it has to be. And when I started thinking about this, I came across like just three things kept circling my mind. Was um it was I wrote them down. uh Under communicated desires, and that's one of them. So what does that mean? Say, I'm just going to use me and my wife. I know that my wife is at work today, and I know that there are things that need to be done around the house. There's a lot of times where, and I'm let me, before I go any further, say that I'm not the best husband ever, and I'm no exception to the rule. And everybody's going to make bad judgment calls, especially when it comes to themselves. A lot of times, but there's a lot of times whenever there's laundry that needs to be caught up on, there's dishes that need to be caught up on. And like yesterday, I did two loads of laundry. I put away dry dishes. I knew that because she was at work yesterday. I had the day off, and I know that the last thing I want is for her to go to work all day and then come home and have to do like house chores all night. I'm very stern with my kids. Hey, before mom gets home, we need to make the house look good. And I say we because I spend a lot of my day before I go get my preschooler. I spend a lot of the day trying to do a lot of that stuff. And then when they get home, they have chores they have to do. So let's just prioritize that the best we can. Um, so if she's not, if there's not a desire that she wishes to see, and I don't realize that I'm not paying attention, or I just don't think it's that important, she could start holding some resentment towards me because she works all day, and I didn't do anything. Now, shouldn't have to be told to do certain things as an adult. It's just something I know that people prioritize things different. And laundry, like I could spend all day doing all of the laundry and catching up laundry instead of just one load every day. Um, and it's just, if she's not communicating the things that are important for her, then they might be lower on my priority list. But the second that she starts saying, hey, these things, I would like for these things to get done, I realize that those things are high on her priority list, so I can make them high on my priority list. And I don't really have any desires. I just, hey, as long as everybody's fed, everybody's in a good mood, like that's all I care about. And part of the uncommunicated desires part is making sure that when my wife comes home, she's not bringing on all the tired, exhausted carryover from being at work, and then having to add to that. And so my desire is to see my wife happy. My desire is to see her feeling like, hey, your work is over. There's still things that every parent has to do. I mean, if you don't have any kids, like it's exponentially easier to just kind of do things at your own whim. But when you have as many kids as I do, you kind of have to stay on top of things. Um, but if she's not communicating those desires to me, I can't make them as high as she does. And if it's a low priority for me and it's a low priority for her, then I don't really think about it. But if it's things that are of high priority, I need to do better at doing that. And that goes for wives and husbands. Like if your spouse has not communicated a particular desire that or a priority, you can say priority instead of desire. If you're not prioritizing things in ways that they're prioritizing, then that's a problem. And it comes with communication. You've got to communicate. You got to figure out, what do you think is the most important thing today? I mean, yesterday's yesterday. We don't need to carry over anything from yesterday. We don't need to think about the future. Just what can we get done today to make sure that today is a good day? Also, the second thing is, I think unrealistic expectations can be there, because if I'm expecting my wife, I swing shifts, I work 12-hour shifts, and if I'm expecting my wife to do all of the work and then I come home and just kind of sit and do nothing because I'm a man and that's what men do, the wives are supposed to do that kind of stuff. As a Christian, that's bogus. I mean, Christian marriages, like it says, men, love your wife as Christ loved the church. That means being sacrificial, being loving. How do they pick up on love? How do they sense love? And some of that is acts of service. If doing the laundry is going to help your wife feel loved, and I promise that it is, do the laundry. Like, don't make your wife do all of it. I don't care if she's a stay-at-home mom or not. You can help pitch in to do the laundry. You can help pitch in doing the dishes. You can do that stuff. So don't put this all off on your wife, especially men. And we can't expect our wives to carry 100% of the load at home. And for the ladies, like unrealistic expectation is the same thing. Like, oh, I expect my husband to do this, and it's unrealistic to have expectations and not communicate them. Communication, excuse me, all of this is about communication. Every single bit of it is about communication. You have to be able to communicate with your spouse and help each other realize, like, this is a priority for me. This is what I think is important. And when you start communicating better, obviously the under-communicated priorities and desires, they go out the window because you've communicated, like, this is what I hope in our marriage. This is what I hope as we build a home and have kids and maintain a house and house chores and all that other stuff. You got to be able to communicate that, but it's unrealistic to expect something of somebody if you haven't communicated that. And if you expect your wife or your husband to have this like rockin' bod and to make six figures all the time and to just be perfect, that's crazy. That's unrealistic. And it's also unrealistic to think every individual should prioritize things the same if you're not communicating what's important to each other. So you have to communicate that. You can't have these expectations of somebody and not communicate it. And then also some of that stuff, and the third thing, I guess, is this unrealized discontentment of self. When you're not content with yourself, you're going to be a drag. Like, you're going to constantly be upset or depressed over something, and you're going to want to sit down and just check out. You're not going to feel worth. How are you pouring worth into your spouse? How are you pouring encouragement into your spouse? How are you helping reassure that, like, when I look at my wife, I don't want her to look like somebody else. Like, the standard for what I think is a good-looking woman is my wife. She's brunette. I love brunettes. She's naturally beautiful, and I got lucky. I married up. I don't know how that happened, but that's another thing. But I don't expect her, and I want to make sure that she's feeling worth, and I want to make sure she's feeling like I'm doing my best to let her know, like, I love her no matter what, and she's pretty and she's beautiful and she's a wonderful person, and I want to communicate those things to her. And I don't do that perfectly, but at some point we have to try to make an effort to do those things. And for the wives, like you have to understand too that for men, they want to know that they're secure in their marriage, that what they're doing is good. Let them know what they do well. Like don't just take it as a take don't take it for granted. You know, I don't know why I have the hiccups in every video. I'm sorry. But if if your husband is doing something good, let them know. Like let them know that the most important person in their life finds worth in them. And that's what this is all about. Helping take the unrealistic expectations that we see on social media with the highlight reels of social media, take it out the window, like take it out of play and let them know that what they're doing is enough and that we're going to strive to have a really good marriage and a really good culture in our homes. And man, all of this comes down to just really trying to take some time to say, am I so discontent with myself that it's affected my marriage? Am I so um, is my mental health so poor? Is my spiritual life so poor that it's affected my marriage? And we've got to do better about letting our marriages thrive and not having these uncommunicated desires and priorities and these unrealistic expectations affect who we are. Because I know sometimes, like if let's just say that the laundry doesn't get done, it's easy for a wife to look and say, my husband only looks at me as a maid. Um, but if you communicate to your husband, hey, obviously in a gentle and kind way for both sides, it would mean a lot to me if you would do a load of laundry today. Then do that. And again, I can't stress enough how much you can't expect. I don't care if they're a working mom or a stay-at-home mom. Like husbands, you have to do better about living in a sacrificial way that says, I work too, they work too, we're in this together. I mean, when we get married in our wedding vows, it says the two become one. The only way we can become one is if we're communicating in a way that says like we're in this together. Like this isn't a you thing or a me thing. This is a us thing. And a lot of that comes down to your own discontentment. How discontent are you in your own life that it's affecting your marriage? We got to do better as Christian people. We set the standard for what marriage looks like, and if our marriage looks like garbage, then we can't possibly believe that the sanctity of marriage is a good and godly thing. We can't proclaim the gospel truth of how wonderful our relationship with Christ is as the bride of Christ, if even in our earthly marriages, like they seemingly are one sided, or they don't matter, or we are only going to do as much as we think we should do, and we put all of the pressure on somebody else to be what we think they should be. Um, we got to do better, and I can speak more from a husband side, obviously, than a wife side, but man, husbands, like step up. Like we have to step up. We got to treat our wives as the most important person in our life, because if we don't, it's going to cause trouble. It's going to cause chaos. You know, I grew up in a divorced home, and I got to see the battles of like custody, and just parents being so discontent with each other that it affected me. And I can see the fights and the struggles that come with divorce, and I never want that for anybody. And if you're in a situation like that, you, even then, the discontentment of who you are should never reflect on your kids, and they should never feel the pressure of how terrible somebody is. And your kids are going to grow up, like I said in one of the previous videos that I made, like they're going to figure it out. They're going to be able to see the flaws of each parent, because we grow up and we get wisdom. We kind of see the world from a different perspective as we have kids. So, man, we got to try our best to say, I'm not going to let somebody else affect who I am, and I'm going to do my best to live in a way that the Lord would have me live. And part of that is just being sacrificial and not miscommunicating things or having unrealistic expectations. Like, we got to do better at that. And I can speak more towards men because I am one, but I know from my own observations, having my own marriage, living with a wonderful wife that I don't deserve, it's easy. It's easier for me to see, like, I want to make it a priority to make sure that my wife is completely satisfied in who she is as a child of the God, as a child of God, and to help her realize that she's worth the sacrifice. So, I guess all that to say, what are you doing to make your marriage thrive? What are you doing to be selfless in your marriage? What are you doing to make life better in your home by treating your spouse like someone important? I mean, they're a child. I'm speaking specifically to Christians too. Like, we have to. What are you doing to make them see the beauty and wonders of our God in our marriage through your marriage? So, and if you're not married, you could be engaged. You could be seeking somebody to be married to. What are the things that you can do to make it better? And a lot of that is just setting up before you get married. Hey, I don't want to have these unrealistic expectations of what our marriage is going to be. So I want to communicate what I know right now, what I believe is important. I don't want to have these priorities that I think are really high, and then not set the groundwork of saying, like, hey, this is important to me. This is what I think should happen. This is what I expect out of our marriage. This is how you can love me. All those things are important. So we have to communicate better. We have to do that, because not only is our lives as we know it on the line, but the reputation of Christ is on the line when we just kind of flippantly go through life and just don't think about any of these things. But you have to be content with yourself first. You have to figure out, why am I so discontent, and is it going to pour over into my marriage? I hope that's helpful. And again, I'm not perfect. I fail at this all the time. And I'm thankful for a wife that kind of keeps me in check on when I start to slip. And so again, like I always say, pray for me. The Lord knows I need it. And I hope that is beneficial to you guys. Have a good day.